This is Algebra 1, Lesson 65, and this lesson covers addition of radical expressions and weighted average. Alright, so when we're adding radical expressions, the radical expression just means that it's an expression that has a square root in it. Remember, the square root sign is called the radical. These are just like variables. We have our coefficient, that's the thing that's being multiplied, times our variable, except this isn't a variable, it's a radical expression. We can add or subtract like terms, just like when we're working with variables. So if we look at these, square root of 2, square root of 2, square root of 2 are all the same. That means we can just add or subtract their coefficients. So 4 minus 5 plus 12. 4 minus 5 would be negative 1, plus 12 would be 11 times the square root of 2. That's the answer to that one. These are really, really easy. They're just like adding like terms. All right, let's do another one. Okay, so on this one, we're looking for radicals that have the same number in them. So square root of 3 and square root of 3. The square root of 5 is not the same. It is a different number. See, that's different from those. So it's not a like term. We're going to add the ones that are like terms. So 4 times the square root of 3 minus 6 times the square root of 3 would be 4 minus 6 would be negative 2 times the square root of 3. And then we still have this plus 5. 3 times the square root of 5, so we do plus 3 times the square root of 5. There's nothing that we can combine that with because it's not like terms with the other ones. This part we just added on the end. All right, this one we're going to look for like terms. I've got square root of 2 and square root of 2 there. And then I've got a square root of 3 and a square root of 3. So I need to add the ones that are like terms together first. So here I've got my negative 3 times the square root of 2 and a negative 2 times the square root of 2. Negative 3 and negative 2 would make a negative 5 times the square root of 2. And then my square root of 3's I have positive 5 times the square root of 3 and positive 8 times the square root of 3. 8 and 5 would be 13 plus 13 times the square root of 3. Okay, so you just add the ones that are the same, just like adding like terms. All right, one more. Here we have square root of 3, and there are no more square roots of 3, square root of 2, and this one says square root of 5. So we don't have any that are alike. So the answer is just going to be 4 times the square root of 3 minus 2 times the square root of 2 plus 6 times the square root of 5. We couldn't do anything to that. It's just the same thing. We couldn't do anything to it because none of those are like terms, so we can't combine them. All right, next part is about weighted average. Susan's score improved on each test. Her scores were 60, 71, and 91. The average of her scores is as follows. So remember, when we find average, we're going to add them each together, so 60, 71, and 91, and then divide by the number of numbers. So we add in, we get 222, divided by 3, her score would be a 74. The teacher did not think this was a fair grade since every test covered all the previous material. The teacher thought that the second test was twice as important as the first test, and the third test was 4 times as important as the first test. In other words, she counted the scores on the first test once, the second test twice, and the third test 4 times. So to find the weighted average, we're going to do first test was once, second test twice, so we put the 71 twice, and then the third test 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then we divided that by the number of numbers. Well, we only started with 3 numbers, but now we have 7 because some of them were counted more than once. So we add those together and we divide by 7, and there is her new weighted average. I'm sure she's a lot happier with that grade than she was with the 74. All right, this is what your problems are going to look like. Jim's scores were 60, 70, 80, and 90. What is the weighted average of his scores if the test weights were 1, 2, 4, and 6 in that order? All right, so our 60, we're going to count it once. Our 70 gets counted twice. Our 80 gets counted 4 times. And our 90 gets counted 6 times. All right, so we're going to have 60 plus 70 twice 80 goes 4 times. And then 90 goes 6 times. Okay, and that's all going to be divided by, let's see, what's our number of numbers? 13. Okay, so we're going to add all that top up, and then we're going to divide by a 13. Another way to do this would be to write 60 plus 70 times 2 plus 80 times 4 plus 90 times 6. And all that gets divided by 13. And to get 13, you just add up of this. So 6 and 4 would be 10, 11, 12, 13 numbers equals 1060 divided by 13, and that's going to be 81.54. And you can use a calculator to figure those up. All right, one more type of weighted average problem. This one uses percents. In the graduate level course R. Smith was taking, each of the 3 tests were weighted 20% of the final paper. And the final paper was weighted 40%. Smith's scores on the tests were 60, 70, and 80. His score on the final paper was 60. What is his overall average? All right, so the ones that are weighted 20% are going to be, so our 20% weighted ones are 60, 70, and 80. And then his 40% one is going to be a 60. That's what he got on the 40%. And don't let this little percent right here confuse you. That's just his grade. Okay? All right. So for this one, 40% and 3 20% would make 100%. So 40% plus 20% right there, and another 20%, and another 20%, right? So we've got 20, 40, 60 plus 40 would make 100%, right? So we got to be able to add those together to get 100%. What we're going to do is change those percents into a decimal. So when we change it into a decimal, we just move the decimal point back 2. So that means we're going to have 60 times 0.2, 70 times 0.2, and 80 times 0.2. And then for this one, this is 40%. We're going to move that decimal back 1, 2, and it'll be 0.4. So we're going to multiply that times 0.4. So just turn your percent into a decimal and then multiply each one by its percent. So times 2 is 12. That'd be 1.2. Or would it, let's see, 60 times 0.20. 6 times 2 is 12. Oh, it will be 12. Whoopsie. 12 for that first one. And then 7 times 2 would be 14. And then 8 times 2 would be 16. We're going to add those together. 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 42 points for all that. Okay, and then 60 times 0.4 would be 24. 66. So his grade would be a 0.66 or 66%. So the grade is a 66. All right, so on those, not super hard, just turn it into a decimal and multiply each percent when it's been turned into a decimal times its number. All right, pause the video and do the practice problems, then I'll come back and work them for you. All right, so hopefully you pause that to work those practice problems, and now I'm going to work them for you. All right, so 3 times the square root of 3 and 5 times the square root of 3. I can put those together. 3 plus 5 would be 8 times the square root of 3. And then this one doesn't have any like terms, so I'm just going to tack it on the end. And that is the answer to A. Okay, next one. That's pretty easy. Okay, B. 12 times square root of 7, 6 times square root of 7, and 20 times square root of 7, all of those are the same. So that means we can put all these together. So I've got 12 plus 6 minus 20. 12 and 6 would be 18 minus 20 would equal negative 2 times the square root of 7. Okay, C. All right, on this one, I'm going to look for my like terms. I've got square root of 2 and another square root of 2 and another square root of 2. This one does not fit. He's not a like term. All right, so this really just means 1 square root of 2. Just like if we have x by itself, it means 1x. So that'd be 1 plus 3, so that'd be 4 minus 4. That would end up being 0. So we have 0 square roots of 2. So our answer is just 6 times the square root of 3. That was a little tricky. Okay, next one is a weighted average. The test scores were 70, 80, and 100. What was the weighted average of the test scores? If they were weighted at 1, 5, and 7. All right, so 70 is going to be our 1, 80 is going to be our 5, and 100 is going to be our 7. All right, so 70 times 1 would be 70. 80 times 5 would be 400. And then 7 times 100 would be 700. We're going to add those together. All right, and then we're going to divide by the number of numbers. So how many numbers did we have? Well, we had 70 once, we had 85 times, and we had 107 times. So it would be 7 plus 5 plus 1, which would be 13. So we're going to divide by 13. Okay, so really what this looks like is 70 plus 80 times 5 plus 100 times 7 divided by 13. Okay, and that would be 1170 divided by 13. Let's go. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 1 is 9. 10, 11. 90. So the answer to that one is a 90%. Or you could just put 90. All right, that's it for lesson 65. Thanks for watching.